Anamosa Community School District is celebrating their 150th anniversary during the 2009-2010 school year. From its humble beginning in 1859, the Anamosa Community School District has continued to grow, offering excellence in education for 150 years. Let's take a look back at the history of the Anamosa Community School District. Our look back starts in the early 1830s when the territory, which was to become the state of Iowa, was first opened for settlement after the military expedition sometimes called the Black Hawk War. The Sauk tribe was forced to cede land 50 miles west of the Mississippi River to the United States. As a result of that treaty, on September 21, 1832, the Black Hawk cession land was opened to legal white settlement after June 1, 1833. In 1838, settlers came west and started the small settlement known as Buffalo Forks at the junction of the Wapsipinicon River and Buffalo Forks Creek. The settlement was laid out as Dartmouth, then platted as Lexington. The name of the town officially changed in the early 1850s to Anamosa when Gideon Ford and Edmund Booth met a young Indian maiden by that name. They thought Anamosa a unique and fitting name. The first school for some students was a log cabin a mile southwest of Fairview on what was called the Marion Road. Other students found schooling in their own homes or homes of others. Churches played a role in education and supplied rooms for teachers and students. Early settlers constructed township rural schools for their children in the buildings that were located near their homes. The rural schoolhouses were given quaint names such as Antioch, Black Oak, Hoosier Bend, and Frog Hollow, or were numbered within their townships such as Cass, Fairview, and Wayne. One of the first indications of formal schooling was a notice in the Anamosa Journal, published in 1856. Mr. O. Burke will commence school in the village of Anamosa the first Monday of September and continue for 12 weeks. Terms, $3 a scholar for the term. Anamosa, September 1, 1857. The newspaper encouraged attendance to this school with an article that stated, "School, Mr. O. Burke." It will be seen by referring to his advertisement, will be on hand at the schoolhouse next Monday to receive all children that are anxious to get a better education. Come boys and girls, turn out. It'll not be long before you're too old to go to school. On December 17, 1858, an advertisement announced free schools. We are informed that Mr. J.R. Stillman has commenced a free school at the United Brethren Church. The term will continue 4 months. Miss Emma Lang will also commence a school at Mr. Crockwell's residence on Monday, December 20th. In 1859, the Hazel Knoll School offered formal schooling to young ladies in the following advertisement. Hazel Knoll Boarding School. The next and last term for passing academic year of the Hazel Knoll Family Boarding School will be open on Monday, 18th of April, and will last 11 weeks. Tuition in English branches, drawing, painting and watercolors, drawing in Indian ink and embroidery, with board, fuel, and washing for the term, $38.50. Music on the piano, $10. French, $2.50. Oil colors painting, $5. A few day scholars will be received if desired. Tuition in English, $5. Pencil drawing or in Indian ink, $2.50. Watercolors painting, $2.50. French, $2.50. Oil colors painting, $5. Music on piano with use of instrument, $10. Bishop Isbell, Hazel Knoll, March 16, 1859. It was during this same time period that the establishment of the Anamosa Community School District was taking place. The establishment of the Anamosa Community School District actually was a process that took 3 years to complete and takes us back to 1856 to an article published in the December 11, 1856 Anamosa Journal. Revision of School Laws. In compliance with the provisions of the Act of July 14, 1856, the Honorable Horace Mann of Ohio, the Honorable Amos Dean, President of the State University, and F.E. Bissell, Esquire of Dubuque, were appointed commissioners to revise the school laws of the state. The commissioners are engaged in the discharge of their duties and will be able to lay the report before you in a very few days. The response to this came in the form of this article published in the December 25, 1856 Anamosa Journal. School Fund Commission Office, Jones County, Iowa. To all whom it may concern, you are notified that there are but a few legal school districts in your county, and as it is necessary to have legally organized districts in every township, you are requested to bring in the boundaries of your districts and have them recorded and the districts organized. The townships of Madison and Clay have been districted as per petition into 4 section districts as far as possible, and I would be glad to have each district made of 4 sections so that they may be permanent. I hope the above will be attended to, as no public money will be appointed to a district that is not recorded, and the names of officers placed on file in my office. Signed, C.L.D. Crockwell, School Fund Commissioner, July 31, 1856. This publication ran in the Anamosa Journal almost continuously for a period of 1 year. No action was taken until the state of Iowa passed down Act 11, December 24, 1858, by the Board of Education of the state of Iowa, which outlined the exact terms for towns and cities to establish their school districts. We can only suppose that the following article was published in the February 11, 1859 edition of the Anamosa Journal in preparation to sway the voters in favor of the new school district. Our schools. In the Anamosa sub-district of Fairview Township, the number of public schools is 4. In the new brick schoolhouse at the foot of Strawberry Hill, Mr. and Mrs. Lamson, teachers, the scholar numbers are 78. At Mr. Crockwell's residence, Miss Emma Lang, teacher, 28. At Brown's building, Mr. Stillman, teacher, 53. In Belknap's neighborhood, Mr. Gates, teacher, we do not know the number of scholars. Besides these 4 schools, there is a private school at Reverend Mr. Isbell, Miss Isbell, teacher. There are 12 scholars attending the higher grades of study. Total attending school in Anamosa, including those in the Belknap neighborhood, about 200. Several other schools, including a literary institute, a finally located institution at Fairview, exist in the township, but we have no statistics before us. The district is contracted for the erection of a 2-story brick building on Garnavillo Street for a graded school, capable of accommodating 400 scholars, the cost of which will be $10,000. It will be ready for its proper use next autumn. The want of a higher school has been much felt. In a few months, this evil will cease to exist. The result will be a more elevated standard of intelligence. On March 25, 1859, a petition was signed by 10 voters of the town of Anamosa and was presented to the mayor and councilmen requesting a public vote by ballot in the matter of forming a separate school district. This resulted in a proclamation being published on April 1, 1859 by Amos H. Peasley, mayor, that on the second Monday of April an election will be held. So an election was held on April 11, 1859. While no article giving the details about the results of the election could be found, 2 articles were located in the April 22, 1859 Anamosa Journal that indicated the success of that election. Anamosa District. Mr. W.T. Shaw informs us that the number of inhabitants in the Anamosa School District is 1,183. The number of voters is 257. New school officers. The election last Tuesday for officers of the Anamosa School District passed off very quietly. The following persons were elected: President William T. Shaw, Vice President J.S. Dimmitt, Secretary J.J. Dickinson, Treasurer Israel Fisher, Directors Roswell Crane, R.S. Hudley, David Graham. During the summer of 1859, school was kept in what was known as the Brick Schoolhouse and the United Brethren Church, 2 teachers each. The schools were kept in session 44 weeks out of 52, and the school year was divided into a summer and winter term of 22 weeks each. In the winter of 1859 and 60, the young school district rented rooms from the Mark's Episcopal Church. In the summer of 1861, St. Mark's Episcopal and the Congregational churches were rented by the district. In these buildings and other rented rooms, the public schools were kept until the erection of a school building. The site for the school building was purchased in the spring of 1861 from Burton Pete, 2.5 acres of the northeast corner of Section 10 in Fairview Township. In April 1861, bids were received for the erection of a building. Alonzo Spaulding's bid of $4,475 was awarded the contract. Called the Graded School, it was not completed until winter of 1862-63, and when plastered and furnished cost almost double the original bid. To accommodate pupils in that portion of the district, a schoolhouse was erected in the summer of 1867 in the direction of the stone quarry. This burned in 1871 by a fire originating from a locomotive and sweeping through the timber in which the schoolhouse was located. A new building was immediately erected at the cost of $1,000. In 1871, the first graduation class of Anamosa High School held a commencement service. At this time, another school started in Anamosa. Adelaide Isbell, the well-educated second daughter who never participated in the Hazel Knowles School, accepted the principalship of the Jones County Academy. Adelaide had taught schools in Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, and later in Iowa, where she was preceptress at Marion and Upper Iowa University at Fayette. On December 5, 1866, she married Colonel Charles Springer from Anamosa. Colonel Springer died in 1870, So, in the summer of 1872, Adelaide returned to Anamosa, where she took over the Jones County Academy. The academy, located on the second floor of the IOOF building in Anamosa, was founded in 1870 and continued for 17 years, according to the dates kept by Mrs. Springer. After the Jones County Academy closed about 1887, Mrs. Springer retired to the family home at Hazel Knoll. She died on June 8, 1908. April 8, 1872. The independent district of Strawberry Hill was separated from the independent district of Anamosa, returning in 1901. Also in 1872, an addition was made to the graded school. A course of study was formally adopted in 1874, arranging for a high school department of 3 years. In April 1877, that portion of the district south of the Wapsipinicon River was set off to the Fairview district, the river being declared a legal obstruction, preventing the attendance of children from the opposite side. Another private school that was established about the same time in Anamosa was the Corbin School. Reverend J.I. Corbin came to Anamosa from St. Louis in 1875 and became rector of St. Mark's Episcopal Church. He soon organized a class of boys and taught them in the vestry of the church. The following year, he persuaded his sister, Marcia P. Corbin, to join him. Mr. Corbin promised her that he would build a schoolhouse if she would assist him in teaching. The building was erected on Booth Street, back of the residence that Mr. Corbin built. After Mr. Corbin passed away, the building was moved up and connected with the residence. It is the fourth house from Main Street on the west side. The 1879 school year comprised 9 months, usually beginning in September. Total enrollment was 367, with Professor Parkhill as principal, Mrs. L. M. Noble, assistant principal, and 7 other teachers. In 1885, another addition was built onto the graded school, which was called the high school. There was some strife at the time of the election as to whether the school should be built on the north side of town or as an addition to the graded school. It was during the 1890s that Stone City Schoolhouse came under the supervision of the Independent School District of Anamosa. The school district also owned the old brick Strawberry Hill Schoolhouse and the grounds in the area where the swimming pool and Wapsiana Park are today. A parochial school venture was started by a community of Franciscan nuns who came here from Kentucky in January 1891, where Bishop Hennessy had directed their mother house be established. In addition to their day school, they had large classes in music and painting. The school flourished, but the house was so small that many of the sisters had to sleep in a hayloft of a nearby barn. The first Iowa mother house in Anamosa was so small and so busy that the sisters nicknamed it the Beehive. After 3 or 4 years, they moved to a larger field of service in Clinton. The first high school football team originated in 1896. Other athletics and interscholastic competition became part of the school program. In 1905, the Board of Education became opposed to athletics in the school and prohibited football. After a strike by the students, athletics returned to the school in 1906, with the exception of football. To be eligible, students had to be passing in 3 subjects, be regular in attendance, and be of good moral character. A teacher of music and drawing was hired for the first time for the 1906-1907 school year. To ensure good participation, drawing and music were required subjects for which credit would be given. Expecting resistance to this, the school board made it clear that claiming one could not sing would not serve as an excuse not to take music. It was pointed out that everyone could learn the history or rudiments of music and the biographies of famous musicians. 1907 saw the first telephone installed in the schoolhouse. Also in 1907, Superintendent Frank C. Popham was the first Anamosa superintendent with the documented authority to recruit and hire teachers. Popham was also the first superintendent to receive the message that he should be prepared to move on, as recorded in the Board of Education minutes. Mr. Popham resigned at the close of the 1908-1909 school year. In 1910, the Anamosa High School had an enrollment of 99 pupils. The grammar school had an enrollment of 418 pupils, and 43 at the Stone City School, making a total of 561. These 561 students weren't the only ones in school. A day school had been recently started where the unfortunates were confined. The prison school offered a rudimentary education. Mr. C.C. Taylor was engaged as superintendent and assisted by a corps of inmate teachers. There was also an instructor for the female department. In 1914, the district received approval for normal training. Students, upon completing a summer program of instruction after graduation, were licensed to teach in the rural schools. Anamosa's normal training program ended in 1947 due to the closing of rural schools and higher certification requirements. Then in 1915, a new building was constructed and became a junior high and high school. The addition to the original construction was removed when the 1915 building was under construction, and it's said that some of the original bricks were cleaned and used in the basement construction of that building. It is this addition which is still in use today as West Middle School. The 1885 building was slated to be taken down at that time, but remained in use until 1982, serving students for nearly 100 years. Reflecting the entry of the United States in World War I, a board resolution adopted in 1917 stated that the study of the German language is to be dispensed with in the schools hereafter. In 1921, the Anamosa High School basketball team made history. They won the Iowa State Class B championship, but lost to Davenport for the overall high school basketball title. George Van Dusen was chosen for the Des Moines Register All-State team at center. Van Dusen's honor was the first ever by an Anamosa athlete. Both Van Dusen and teammate Glenn Russell won All-Star awards for the Iowa University tournament that year. Russell picked up an honor roll award with the Register for his outstanding play. Starters for Anamosa included Milton Cheshire, team captain Ralph Belknap, and Leo Zimmers. Team substitutes were Harry Hayden, Pete and Carol Shimerda, and Chet McMurrin. Finishing the year 18-7, Coach Howard W. Leach received much praise for his work during the 1920-21 season, with the hope that he will see his way clear to return here next year, where he will receive a welcome hand. American women were officially allowed to vote in 1920. Could this be what caused the total male domination of the Anamosa school boards to be shattered in March 1923 with the election of Mrs. Mildred Paul and Mrs. Rose Sigworth to the school board? They were the first women to serve in this capacity in Anamosa.
Well done, Sister Suffragettes!
In August 1924, the board authorized the superintendent to hire clerical assistants for his office, the first record found of secretarial personnel being hired. Robert L. Larson was a teacher and coach at Anamosa High School at the time. He went on to become Iowa Attorney General and later Iowa Supreme Court Justice. He coached the 1925 football team that placed second in the state. That team was undefeated in 1924 and in 25. After the first two games ended in ties, Anamosa only had one touchdown scored against it the rest of the season. Music took a boost on July 28, 1927, when Professor Jenny presented a proposition to organize a school band, and the school board unanimously agreed. The Depression steadily caused financial woes for the district, and in February 1932, the gravity of the economic situation was brought directly home to the school board. It adopted a resolution paying the teachers for January, and, if any balance is left, it is to be used in paying the bills as far as they will go. With an empty treasury, the district issued warrants bearing 6% interest. Across the district, salaries were cut and then frozen into the 1934-35 school year. Amid the troubled economic times, a proposal for the construction of an addition to the school was issued and approved. In 1935, the 1915 building was remodeled, and an addition of $70,000 included classrooms, auditorium, and a gymnasium. According to the Anamosa Eureka, the new structure will be 85 feet by 108 feet and will be placed southwest of the present buildings, connected to the south end of the present structure. The new addition will contain 5 new classrooms, including a new science laboratory, and 2 classrooms for the new commercial course, which will be added to the curriculum. There will also be a gymnasium of regulation size and an assembly room capable of holding the entire high school and grades, seating about 800. The present plan is to departmentalize 4th, 5th, and 6th grades next fall, which will increase the efficiency of instruction in these grades. When the Catholic congregation outgrew the little brick church on the hill at the point of High Street and moved to the stone one, which burned in 1936, they concluded to have a parochial school in the outgrown brick structure. St. Patrick's Catholic School in the fall of 1944 opened with 4 grades. 4 more grades were added in 1945, increasing the school to 8th grade. During the summer of 1958, 3 houses on North Garnavillo Street across from the church were removed, and this became the site for their new school. The school was dedicated in November 1959. St. Patrick's School continues today for grades preschool to grade 6. In 1938, Anamosa was celebrating its 100th anniversary with parades and pageantry. In January 1939, a teacher of the handicapped was hired by the district for the first time for 2 children. Also in 1939, vocational agriculture and home economics programs began at the Anamosa High School. From 1937 to 1942, the Anamosa Blue Raiders were once again a football powerhouse. Anamosa went 5 years undefeated with a 47-game unbeaten winning streak. Coached by Wally Schwank, Anamosa outscored their opponents 313-6. During the 1940 season, one of the most famous games in Anamosa football history was played. It was the Armistice Day Blizzard game against Monticello in 1940. Over 2,000 people watched the game as it ended in a scoreless tie. Four of the lettermen signing up for military service in 1943 marked the end of this unequaled era in football. During the 1945-46 school year, the under 20-year-old draftees were welcomed back to complete their high school education. In 1948, several projects were financed. A building was erected behind the main building, which served as a bus garage. Gym balconies were built, and wiring and electrical services for the buildings were modernized. The head football, basketball, and track coaches were paid extra, as well as the drama director, who directed 3 plays that year. Virgil S. Lagomarsino became superintendent in 1949, serving until 1951. Dr. Lagomarsino went on to serve as the first dean of the College of Education at Iowa State University. 1949 also saw the district's first school nurse hired, as well as the first speech therapist hired in January 1950. The post-World War II baby boom, together with the closing of many rural schools, overtaxed the Anamosa elementary classroom capacity. On May 14, 1954, approval was granted for the construction of an elementary school. The new Strawberry Hill School was occupied in the fall of 1956. Don Norton attended Anamosa Schools, graduating in 1956. Rose Bowl twice.
Excitement grew into mass hysteria as Iowa won the Big Ten title in Rose Bowl bid.
Iowa trounced Cal 38-12. The win cemented the 1958 Hawkeyes a special place in the history of Iowa football.
The 1958 Iowa football team in the annals of Hawkeye football would be #1 because it won the national championship as awarded by the Football Writers of America. It won an outright Big Ten championship, and it achieved more than any other Iowa team has ever achieved, without a doubt.
On June 17, 1957, the official announcement of Anamosa as Small Town USA was made by the United States Information Agency. In conjunction with the filming of a small town in the United States, several small towns in Europe were selected as a part of a series of programs for the European Broadcasting Union in an effort to develop greater mutual understanding among our nations. It took 2 weeks and 20,000 feet of film shot that was edited down to the 2,000 feet used for the 30-minute feature.
The elementary school is new, built in the last 3 years, while the high school, which is much older, grew addition by addition with the town itself.
The 1958-59 school year saw Jack Fisk begin the wrestling program. Tom Bertling was the first Anamosa student to participate in a state wrestling meet. School district reorganization occurred in the mid to late 1950s and early 1960s due to the enforcement of higher school standards and an acute shortage of qualified teachers. A school district reorganization committee was appointed in August 1958. School district reorganization brought together the Anamosa Independent District, part of the Viola Consolidated District, all or part of Antioch, Black Oak, Brady, Cass, Fairview, Hoosier Bend, Midland, Wagner, and Wayne Township rural school districts. March 20, 1962 brought in part of the Martell Consolidated District. The reorganization was complete on July 1, 1963, when part of the Morley Consolidated District joined. The new district contained 134 square miles. Its first operating budget totaled $708,478. There were 76 staff members, and the student enrollment was 1,578. The Morley and Viola buildings were used as elementary schools, and the Martell building housed the junior high school. In 1964, the recommendation was made by a citizens committee to build a new high school. In 1965, a Waterloo architectural firm was hired, and the educational specifications were approved. By 1965 in November, the first election seeking approval for the new high school failed. Second election in May 1966, approving the issue with a 72.4% favorable vote. The new high school was completed in time for the 1968-69 school year. The new high school was completed in time for the 1968-69 school year. The 70,000 square foot building provided 27 classrooms and office areas for each teacher. At the time, it was designed to serve an enrollment of 550 students. It was advertised as a state-of-the-art all-electric building. The locker room area, located beneath part of the gymnasium, had been built to serve as a fallout shelter. Roger Starr started the golf program in 1965. The team had a great beginning, finishing second in the conference and winning the sectional tournament.
Better, stronger, faster.
Anamosa Sports had a banner year in 1966-67. They won the WAMAC championships in baseball, basketball, wrestling, and boys golf. The track team finished third in the state meet. Occupying the new high school triggered other changes in the district. The junior high school, consisting of grades 7 through 9, was moved from Martell to Anamosa. The Morley School was closed and the building was sold to the town of Morley. Martell, Viola, Strawberry Hill, and West served as elementary schools. In November 1968, the board approved a girls' basketball program for 9th grade. The program was expanded to the high school in 1969-70, and a 7th and 8th grade program was begun in 1973-74. It finally became a conference sport in 1974-75. The industrial arts and vocational agriculture shops were constructed at the high school in 1971-72. Midterm graduations for students who met all the graduation requirements was approved by the board in September 1972. School-sponsored baccalaureate services were eliminated in 1973, and commencement was changed to Sunday afternoon. The girls' athletic program was expanded to include volleyball in 1979. By winning a WAMAC championship in 1980, continuance of the program was assured. 1980 also saw the baseball team win the district championship. The 1979-80 school year saw the school board approve the closing of West Elementary and to have the building demolished. The West Elementary school building was demolished in the summer of 1982. building is commemorated by a brick marker built on the site by George Waters. The bricks and stone used in the sign are from the original building. A bronze plate states, "This structure marks the site of the first high school in Anamosa." The 1914 building was renamed West Middle School. In December 1997, the Anamosa Band was invited to our nation's capital to perform in the annual Independence Day Parade held in Washington, D.C. on July 4th, 1998. The band was nominated by the Governor's Office and the High School Music Association to be the Iowa representative in the parade.
DC, here we come!
Also taking in the sights of Washington, D.C. were the students on tour from Anamosa. At midnight on Sunday, August 10th, the group left for their journey to Washington, D.C. and New York. While in Washington, D.C., both Anamosa groups toured the Capitol, monuments, and memorials. They also visited Arlington National Cemetery and had the honor of presenting a wreath from Anamosa High School at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier.
Look how he moves, only it's below the waist.
In October of 1996, voters passed a $6.1 million bond issue. Funds were for a large addition to the elementary school and a new multi-classroom annex at West Middle School. The annex building housed the band, industrial arts, and family and consumer science classrooms. The Strawberry Hill addition added a gymnasium and additional classrooms. In 2000, a new fitness center building was added near the high school, which was funded by private donations and the athletic boosters. The building provided weightlifting, wrestling, and physical education spaces. The new softball diamond was completed in 1999. The biggest boost to the new field came with Anamosa winning the Lindale Mall Dollars for Scholars program that allowed them to afford the lighting. Previously known as Big Tree Field, the area across the street and just a bit south of the City Ball Diamonds was selected. The Raiders christened their new diamond with a win, defeating North Lynn in a 4-3 thriller. The enormity of the terrorist strikes against America was brought into sharp focus for Anamosa as family members, friends, and other caring individuals gathered to pay homage to the memory of Craig Amundsen. Craig was born in Marion but grew up in Anamosa, graduating from Anamosa High School in 1992. Craig went on to earn a BA in Film Studies from the University of Iowa. He enlisted in the Army in October 1998. At the time of the attack, he was working in the field of video production assigned to the Pentagon.
All of us in this room were witness to this tragedy through the media. Craig is our native son, who represents all of our concern. Craig, you had influence, and you didn't even know.
Throughout the years, the Anamosa High School Art Department A history of our schools is not complete without giving praise to our drama and speech departments. Since the beginning of the Anamosa schools, there have been exhibitions, plays, and performances by our students. These wonderful performances have had the community rolling in laughter, moved to tears, and seeing stars shine on the stage. We close with these words from Mary May. This bit of history has not covered all events of our school. Our school was founded with just one purpose in mind, to give young people the best training possible to make good citizens of them. Our record shows we've made a good start, but this is only the beginning of the usefulness our school is capable of giving to the communities near it. Let us, one and all, be loyal to it, help it, boost it, and make it the servant of the public it should be by training our boys and girls to be good citizens. Written, 1945.